thank you all for being here. This is absolutely phenomenal. This was definitely intentional, as all of them are. But when I pulled you four together, it was because I think we got some things we need to discuss, specifically what the future of our city looks like and why it looks that way or doesn't look that way. There's art in politics as well. I would imagine so, right? I mean, front line, especially at the city council level where you are, right? We're calling your office. I mean, I know I'm calling the office, trying to get this street shut down, that street shut down every other day. But you know, that's what we do. You know, as you know, she picked up the phone. So talk about that a little bit and how you talked about the courage piece of it. Right?
And you are stepping out there. And people, you know, like, it was amazing to me that people will, like, watch city council meetings because someone will say, well, you said this. I'm like, wait, you were actually watching?
Right.
I mean, like, it was just kind of, because you know, you don't see the camera when you're in the room, so you just kind of forget that it's being taped. So you're just talking and everybody's being real. I mean, hopefully being real. I'm being real. Yep. You know, and so you really, I mean, you just don't know, but it is, I think it takes some courage, but you know, it's kind of like if you're chosen to be in that position, then it's an honor, and you got to make sure you are prepared every day. You are ready. You're representing your constituents, like the people of Cincinnati. You're trying to make the best decision possible, and it's that constant pressure. Like, you never want to feel like, I'm just going to vote this way because so and so wants me to. It's like, is this the right decision?
Are there bits and pieces that you learn during Eric's reign as a politician that you apply now?
Absolutely. One big thing I learned from Eric when he served in the state senate was, do not just go and talk to people who agree with you. Sure. So it's easy. We always want to be affirmed. Like, am I right? Like, tell me I'm right. You know, tell me you agree with me, right? Just like the Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle. Like, what? You right. But so it's good to hear the other side. It's good, and there are lots of sides. Yeah, there are lots of sides. I mean, and Eric always said, bring everybody to the table. Don't just bring the people who affirm what you think, because you got to be open to everything. And that has helped me make what I think are really good decisions. I can't think back on a decision I made that I think was like, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. You know, because it's gone through. And not to say I haven't made mistakes, but there's nothing like, oh, I really regret voting that way. It's like, I've thought about it. I've heard lots of different sides. And even though, you know, people might like this or not like that, it's like, I've gathered all the information I could and went in like, this is the right thing to do.
We need more like you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alicia.
Means, let me ask you this question. I've always wanted to know this about you because, see, a lot of people, we know what Black owned is, right? And it has become a national brand, right? And will become a global brand. I'm speaking that, it is, if not already. I'm speaking into existence. But the design aspect of it, right? I'm talking separate from the music, right? Because I know that version of you as well. And we could talk about that level of being an artist also, but the designs, do you ever get nervous when you put something out? You're like, are people gonna like this? Because people don't realize your design palette and the fact that I've watched you draw what the next fall collection looks like. And I know you have a great supporting cast. It's not just you, but at the same time, is that nerve-wracking for you to an extent?
Yeah. I'll be honest, yes. The short answer is yes. But I think when you're an artist, it requires you to have a certain level of, I'm gonna say this word, arrogance. Because if you're, as an artist, if you're constantly searching for approval, then you'll never finish your projects.
Wow.
And that was me when I first started designing. Like, I always had a love for fashion because it started in music, and music and fashion is the same thing really for me. But early on, when we moved from printing our logo on Hanes shirts and we wanted to elevate, it required me to start learning from other designers and watching YouTube and just really going into the store and touching fabrics and what is this stitch? What is that? So when I started to design my own pieces, I did wonder if people would love it. You have that, will people like what I'm coming up with? And that could become nerve-wracking, just trying to figure out, am I doing this right? I think if you're a good artist and you have something to share with the people, you're doing it right. That's the whole point of being an artist, is from my perspective. Right. And then I had to remind myself that everyone isn't gonna be a fan of my work. So I had to start designing with a certain level of arrogance to say that this is so good that it's gonna find the people who have a mind like mine. And you know, once I got to that point, I think now when I design something, I'm like, yo, this crazy.
It's fire.
It's crazy. Like, I can't wait to get this out. Like, I can't wait to see how I'm gonna wear it or who's gonna wear it. But, you know, every now and then you do have this like thought, like, all right, am I really pushing the limit a little too far? You know this. People would talk about how I dressed because I was probably the first one wearing like really fitted pants and fitted shirts in the city, and everybody's like, what is wrong with this dude? Like, why is his shirt so tight?
And everybody started doing it.
And then, that really happened, and everyone started to do it. And those are the times when you're reminded, like, I'm on the right path. So as you grow, you find more confidence in what your work is, and you accept your assignment. And my assignment isn't design. It's bringing people together, and I'm just using my designs to do that. So I love
that.
That's what I feel like, because, I mean, we talk all the time. I feel like his approach is more of a servant. He's like serving through his art, which is beautiful. You know what I mean? Like with what you're doing with the space. Yeah. We ain't talking about Black coffee too. Like coffee is a space where like, it's community.
Yeah.
And then you like, it's just a beautiful, I mean, the way that you slice and dice. I admire it, and I tell you that all the time, but it's like, it's really through like serving people, but you also like serving yourself too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Which is beautiful, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alecia, what work, look, Artswave, incredible organization here in our city, doing incredible work. I know several of the things that I've created, I mean, they might have existed, but maybe not moved as fast. You know, I got a quick story. So I pitched Alecia on Black and Brown Faces. This is how I met you, right? We didn't know each other. And that's something that we probably should talk about, the fact that specifically some of the Black creatives and thought leaders in the city, we don't connect as much, whether that's because we work too much or we're not intentional about it, but we'll get there. I called Alecia and I said, hey, you know, I want to do this thing called Black and Brown Faces. And my idea of this was that it would live in a warehouse in OTR, because everything I do is in OTR. Right. And then, you know, things were empty. We would take over the space in the last 3 days. And she was like, well, why does it only have to last 3 days? I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't know. Like, why doesn't it last 90 days? I'm thinking to myself, sounds good to me. Right. You know,
Right.
You know how I am. And then she drops, she goes, well, what about spaces? And, you know, she can pick up the phone and she can call the art organizations. And I've never said this publicly. But she was like, the Cincinnati Art Museum. I grew up in Cincinnati. I've been here 36 years. I had never even been.
Wow.
I just was like, of course. I know it's the museum on the hill, right?
Yeah.
And Cameron and I talk about this, and he loves when I share, like when I share that level of insight, and when we pulled the data from Black and Brown Faces, and a lot of Black and Brown people, they had visited the museum for the first time, and they discovered so many other incredible things, and now they're going back.
Right.
So, but I had never been, right? And the way you were able to help me navigate those waters and make that happen, you are truly you're an unsung hero amongst the rest of the unsung heroes sitting in this room.
Thank you.
So you should know that. But what specifically as it pertains to the courage work, right? I know the reconciliation project that you just completed. Yeah. But I was looking at some of those pieces when I went through the Freedom Center.
Yeah.
And that was what jumped off, was like some of the courage wrapped around the art. You know, when you put something out like that, I couldn't imagine the feeling of, are people going to interpret this the right way, or what is the right way? Right. Yeah. How do you guys think about that as an organization and empowering that?
Well, we're learning too, and we were so humbled and astonished that we had like 54 applicants for that program last year, literally twice as many as we were expecting. And when we saw that response, we went out and we raised more money, because we didn't want to have to like meet the budget with the need and the opportunity. So we raised a lot more money, and we were able to fund 27 artists. And you know, I don't know that I would have planned that program years ago, although it had been in the works for a while. The funding had been in the works. But my motto is do what needs doing. And this needed doing. Nobody was supporting individual artists, and Jean-Michel, you know, to your credit, you saw the need for all artists relief during COVID, but that was just part of the story, and now we need to make that just a much bigger part of our community's work plan, the city's work plan,
that's
the
right.
neighborhood work plan. There isn't a single issue that doesn't have an art-centric solution.
I love that.
Yeah, everything. Think about transportation, public safety, education, healthcare, mental health, policing. You know, throw one at me and I will give you an art-centric solution because of the power of artists. I'm not an artist. I'm just here to empower artists.
That's strong. I love that.
It literally makes the world. I mean, I had nothing to do with the arts until that
Really?
opportunity.
Wow.
Nothing. Because I didn't think that you could be in the art world without being an artist. Right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I wasn't realizing that my brother Means, who I've known for 20 years, is an artist. He's an artist, right? And G, who I, you know, the way he creates, the things that he creates, that's what I think is, and I say that to G all the time. He's like, if you could pull 5,000 people together to dance, you're an artist, right? You told me that. Like, you that's,
sure.
That's
Or a good promoter.
And so I'm embracing that a little more, and it's making me a bit more courageous to do some of the outside the box things, like a barbershop art gallery concept that, you know, people didn't understand that. The city embraced it in a way.
That's because
But
of you, though. They're like, okay, Rico said this is gonna happen. We're just gonna
6 months
support
later,
it. Right?
I'm trying to.
It's crazy.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. Let's talk about some of the things you're trying to do, right? We know affordable housing here is a big problem.
Yeah,
And
home ownership too.
And home ownership.
Yeah,
Can you
that's-
stand on that? Talk about that a little bit.
So I look at the history of racism and, you know, like redlining and just how like Black and brown communities have just been cheated out.
Define redlining for us. I want to make sure that we.
So back in the day, the way banks and mortgage companies would decide if they're gonna, like, you know, you want to buy a house, so where is it? And so they would look on their map and they had drawn a red line around like Black and brown, literally around Black and brown communities, like, we're not loaning in that community. You know, this might be green over here. Like, if you live over here, you can get money. If you live here, you can't. So there literally were maps with red lines around them. That's why they call it redlining. So, like, you know, too high
I just
risk.
learned that.
We don't think you can pay it back, so you don't get the money. So your family cannot buy a house, and so generations later, where other families have used like equity in their homes to start businesses or, you know, send their kids to college or whatever, you know, Black and brown communities didn't have that. And so like the home ownership rate in Cincinnati is really bad anyway. It's like 38%. In the country, it's something like 62%.
We're that far behind.
Yeah, but that's just Cincinnati as a whole.
Really?
Black and brown communities are even lower than that. And so, yeah, we're really far behind. And that, you know, it's a way of having multi-generational wealth that you can use that equity. Also, it makes your neighborhoods more stable. And they say that, you know, when your family owns a home, like the kids do better in school, you know, because you're not moving from place to place all the
It's
time.
all these
Like,
correlations, yeah.
yeah, you own something. You're healthier. I mean, there are all these kinds of effects, and so we've got to, you know, we're working on that because that's something that we're just missing out on. I know a lot of younger people don't really want to own a home, and my daughter's like, we're going to move around, and I'm like, you know, well, you need to own something. You know, like that's important. You know, that's important to own the land. You know, own that land.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Means. You was about to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that, one. So that's crazy information. But two, another piece to this is during that period, these homeowners, the taxes is what contribute to the education, the school system.
Right.
So in the areas where people were able to buy homes, the schools are better. And then the schools that I attended weren't. So when I got to Miami, the people that I hung with, they would go out all the time. And I would say, how are you getting A's? And I studied twice as hard as you. And Miami, Oxford, Ohio, And they would always say, this is what we did in high school. And me, I would say, well, I've never seen any of this.
Wow.
So to your point, it's like, that's where we come in at as Black owned. We understand that we can't fix it overnight, but we do have some type of expectation where there's a little more given to Black businesses, brown businesses.
Has to be.
So that we are in position to purchase a home. You know, I owned a business 10 years before I bought my first home. Not because I didn't want a home, just because that's how much work it took me to get to a point where I was stable enough. Credit score, enough money in the bank, down payment, all of those things. So I just wanted to throw that out there because home ownership is important, much more than just being able to say I can own it, but it is the gateway to financial freedom.
Yeah. Sure.
Because we all speak about education, and if we believe in that, then home ownership is directly attached to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Alecia, let me ask you this as it pertains to this, and I know you won't mind me asking, but you know, I think me and Means, we grew up the same way, and G and I are learning each other as well, and it's a very sort of dominant factor here of how we grew up and how we were raised, and I don't think any of us were taught home ownership at a young age. Is that have you seen that to be very, very different outside of the Black community? Right? The way you grew up, did you grow up with, hey, buy a house, right? And or is that being taught at an alarming rate more than what we've discussed?
I grew up in Los Angeles, which is very different from Cincinnati. So part of like me learning what needs doing has been figuring this place out, right? Yeah. Because my childhood was very different. I went to a intentionally mixed race magnet school, intentional busing across the city to mix kids up. So my friends growing up were of all races, and in LA, you know, whites are the minority a lot. So you don't have the same sense that you do in Cincinnati of entering a room and everybody looks like you. So I don't know about home ownership, and the same things happen in cities, you know, communities settle in different places and bad things happen with decision making. But larger cities where there's more influx of other cultures, I think coastal cities, right? I'm not sure it's Cincinnati's fault or, you know, part of the DNA, but coastal cities, West Coast and East Coast, have just more in and outflow of people of different cultures. And so kids grow up accepting that to be the norm and not surprised when they encounter somebody of a different culture, different skin color on the street.
That says a lot about you, though, because you seem comfortable with everybody, and some people just aren't. And so that I didn't know that about your background. But that's why. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I was very fortunate in that respect.
Yeah.
And I've also had the experience of living in 2 third world countries, living and working in.
Where'd you live?
I lived in Moscow and in Honduras, and worked in both places. See? Yeah. So it's really important for young people, especially. But I don't think it's something you can't learn when you're older either. To live somewhere else, get a perspective on what we have here in the United States, at least in good times, and what it means to be the other. Because if you can experience that, then empathy and doing what's right, it's just, it comes so much easier. Yeah.
What support is needed to help move that initiative where it needs to go, right? And I don't know what those numbers are, if they're hard numbers that says, hey, this will change the landscape. It doesn't help that, like, I was talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about how, depending on what cities we live in, our children may never own cars. I remember it was a big deal when you got 16, like, will I get a car? And mine was a Pontiac 6000 SE. It had no power steering. It was like, but you was happy to have it.
Where you needed
He
to
was
go.
happy to have it. Kids, I was talking to a friend who bought his son a car, and he was like, why would you buy me a car? Like, they take bird scooters and Uber everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
Upset that the gift wasn't like a trip or something like that. I'm like, it was a Jeep Wrangler. I'm like, I would have gave an arm and leg to have a Jeep Wrangler when I was 16.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that doesn't help, but like, what needs to happen, right? We know the election is in 22 days. We know we have certain advocates who are rooting for housing and home ownership to move forward, but what needs to happen?
Well, affordable housing.
Housing.
It's different than just the home ownership piece, because affordable can be rental or home ownership. But the city has an affordable housing trust fund, and actually, the issue 3, not the current issue 3, but the affordable housing issue 3. People were nervous about how it would be funded, but the concept of doing something for affordable housing really pushed everybody forward. I mean, and so, I tell people who worked on that, like, you didn't really fail. I mean, people are like, oh, we didn't get, no, you didn't fail. It really pushed us. And so for the city, the city has an affordable housing trust fund. And so now it's got over $50 million in it. Now, before that last election, it had like maybe $1 million something, maybe $2 million, like not enough. So you really need that money in there, one, for the city to, now I should say there's a board that's gonna decide how the money's gonna be spent. But like certain ideas, like you can give developers low interest loans so that they can afford to build affordable housing. You can acquire vacant buildings, renovate them for affordable housing.
Different avenues.
Yeah, so but you need to have money in that trust fund in order to actually move that needle. Home ownership, there are groups all over the city working on different plans for that. So there's a lot in the works for that. Yeah.
That's great.
Wow.
You got a show coming up.
I do. Busy, man.
And it's going to be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
In the
I do.
weeds of it, you know?
It's kinda
You
like
talking about
what-
the arrogance?
No,
Yeah.
it's kind of like what he said about having confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think what I'm creating is it's a combination of what he said, but I follow this motto by the late great Toni Morrison, and she created work for her. It was like it had this healing modality to that allowed her to heal and mend old wounds, that allowed her to like deviate away from the audience. So she had this freedom to just create what the hell she wanted to create. And that's what I feel like I'm doing. Wow. I'm tapping into something that
You feeling free, bro?
I feel so liberated, and it's like, honestly, I can give a damn if anybody likes it or not, because what I'm putting out there, I'm putting like my inner child out there. And it's like he's inside of me and he's raging to be like heard of. So whether you relate to him or not, it's on you.
I got goosebumps. Right?
But for me, I'm liberating him through my work, and that's the goal.
That
And,
explains why you always bring this energy around.
it's like,
You're feeling free right now.
oh, for sure.
I love it.
For sure, and it's
I'm looking at both of you, and I'm like, you all had the audacity to step out on faith and
Audacity is a good word.
and say we're going after our dream. I mean, like you started your business, you left a great job and said,
Right.
I'm an artist. That's who I am. I mean, how does that happen?
It's a combination of by design. Believe it or not, he hit me up and was like, "Yo, I need your work in my store." And at this time, I was working in a corporate space.
That started it?
Well, it was a combination of things that started it, but talking to him about what entrepreneurship looks like helped me say, okay, like it's that thing. Like in order to be something, you have to some kind of see someone who's doing it. I'd be connected to someone.
Yeah.
And like seeing him move, it was just like he didn't know. I was like, I'm gonna be where you at in a little bit.
Now you got it, bro.
Right. But to your point, I think it's like being connected with like-minded are people who may be where you're trying to be.
Yeah.
And they might not know it, but you secretly are plotting to like level up in a way.
It encourages you.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So, so that's why
Good
whenever
for
we
you.
connect, it's the same.
That's why
Same
this
thing with
is
Rico
much,
too.
much bigger than fashion, bro.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And like, I mean.
And you crushed it. Like,
Yes.
we put his art on the walls, like these pieces originally, bro. Everybody walked past, like, blown away by the art. Where do you see black people like this? And before he told me what the art meant to him, I had already had my own interpretation.
Really? Okay.
I told you this, remember? Like, when you look at this picture, one, I usually wear a gold grill.
Right.
I would be wearing one tonight, but I ate it. If you know that happens.
You ate the grill?
Yeah, it happens. It happens, man. It happens. So,
Wow.
when we were
That's probably a whole nother story. I'm
Yeah,
like,
we'll get into
what?
that. That's another
I'll
drink.
get into
This is
it.
another round.
Well, real quick, when we were younger, we had the real deals. Like, they were permanent.
Facts.
Right.
Mom would take you and get the permanent. Now we're older. We want it some days, we don't. So you buy what's called a grill. So you go in and out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just eat with it in, and then whatever you're eating, it
There
just
it
pulls
goes.
it down.
Or talk about how it come out.
I know. Don't go there.
But
Don't go
that's a real thing. That's a culture
Oh,
thing.
for
But
sure, we know.
This piece though, like all of these pieces, like, you know, just represented so much to us. Like I saw warriors, I saw strong people in their element, the hair, the necklaces, everything about it was like, yeah, let's get it. And while it was on the wall, everybody come in, talk about this art. I'm like, G don't know. He the real deal.
Yeah.
Stop it. So, I mean, I try to flirt with like, really with everything that I do, this intersection between beauty and complexity. I want you to feel the complexity in his beauty,
Right. Yeah.
right? I mean,
You do.
reality, this is my 14-year-old nephew.
Yeah.
Like, this is family. Like, I'm not just drawing a stranger. Like, there's so many, like, other sentimental connections and attachments that I was talking about that I have to my work. But at the forefront of it, kind of like Dave Chappelle, where his bravery, I'm like, complexity and raw beauty. How can I showcase that and show like the real Black experience through my work? And I think I'm tapping. I think I'm tapping into something.
Yeah.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
You
Yeah.
were the first artist to cut us a check.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I love
Thank
the
you.
mutual support. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that's so
I feel
strong.
good.
So I
That's so
I feel
strong.
good.
went
to see
on the
them
walls,
shit.
I wasn't even thinking about
Yeah,
check.
yeah, yeah.
I was thinking like, how can I make this space
For sure.
Yeah.
so Cincinnati,
That is
so
very cool.
Black led,
sure.
everyone can embrace it. And then he come back like, I sold a piece, bro.
It was an original. It was an original.
Like, really? He like, yeah. And when I saw the check, I'm like, man,
Cut
that's
him a
my
nice
dude, man.
Cut him a
Like,
nice
man,
check.
Russell, bro.
I was like, Cash App, I've been more what you want.
Hey, bro. Thank you, man.
Awesome.
That is
You know,
great.
that's deep. You know, means you talked about how fond you've grown of G, and you actually, and several others, but you specifically inspired me to jump into entrepreneurship. And I'll tell you why. And we talked about this a little bit the other day on your show. And so I've known Means 20 years, right? We didn't grow up together, but we grew up in neighborhoods where we knew of each other, right? And he was rapping, and I'm like the least creative person in the world, so I was always fond of that. But he also was an athlete, so that's kind of how I, you know what I mean? Incredible football player, right? And when you first started Black Owned, I remember you had the Honda, and you were sliding around, right? You and Mert, your partner, and the clothes would be hanging up in the window, the Honda, and you would order it and they would deliver it to you. It was like, remember, I got the hookup, Master P. It was really that gritty. Then they graduated, had an apartment in Avondale, neighborhood I grew up in, and you went to the apartment and you shopped in the front room. That's where the original store was, right? And then I remember when you guys first got the store, I came down and I was just helping out Scrappy because I was so fond of the process. Right. And the reason I say that is that you helped me fall in love with the process of being an entrepreneur, right? And really, I think I would have went crazy my first 2 years in entrepreneurship, right? Because I used to walk by the shop on my way home, leaving my corporate job, and you was proud of me then, but when I jumped into a full-time entrepreneurship, it was a different type of glow you gave me when I walked into the shop, and a different type of grace, different type of discount too, because he was like, you ain't got it, but you need this, because you're going out tonight. But I just want to let you know I appreciate that, and I think there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are inspired by that story, right? And especially the way you tell it, and the rest of the team as well. So. I just want to give you flowers.
Thank you, bro. I gotta give a shout out to my team if you're talking like this.
That's what I just said the same thing.
Tone, Gil,
Right.
It could never happen without those guys. So thank you, bro.
G, I called you. What? Listen,
She connected us.
I know.
I saw
She
the email
connected
from
us.
Alecia. I was like, okay.
We jumped on the call,
I know.
and I said we was gonna
That's
circle back to this.
crazy.
I said we was gonna circle back to this. And you and I, we have some conversations, right? We have some talks, and we talked about the power of. Okay, so now we have G Horton. The success is getting to the point where it's easily noticeable, right? People walk in, they go, that's the G piece, right? And they walk in here, they walk into the Cincinnati Art Museum where we did Black and Brown Faces. But and you and I talk about this, what is it about you specifically that allows that level of humbleness to always stay at the forefront where anybody can reach you, contact you anytime? Because we know this, and us three, we really talk about this. We really talk about, we get ahead of ourselves way too much and way too early, right? But you literally, I mean, Alecia made the introduction, but you didn't know me.
Right.
I'm talking about doing this art exhibition. I'm coming to your world. What is it in you that goes, I'm gonna give this person or this thing an opportunity, this young person, this person who wants to dabble into my space and I see something in? What is that? Because everybody ain't doing it. Let's just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Nah.
Everybody ain't doing it. Some of us want to be the only one in the room.
Nah, I mean,
that's not good.
My belief system is rooted in like the law of abundance. There's so much out here to get. There's so much out here to give to. Yeah. And if it ain't right for me, I would love to pass it on to somebody else, especially somebody who I know is capable. So that
throw some alley oops.
Yeah, so like
that's real.
If this was a basketball game, I'd be like a Chris Paul. I would rather like pass the ball than take the shot.
Let somebody else take the
Right,
shot.
but if I'm like stripping down to the core of it, I really think it comes back to like, where I grew up with nothing. I grew up in a family of 4 and we had to scrap, and I'm the middle child too, and I had to scrap for everything. But when I scrapped, I would like give it to my younger brother, give it to my older sister. So this ability to give back is rooted in like who I was at the core. Keep in mind when I went to school, I wanted to be a social worker. I wanted to give back into my community. And that didn't quite turn out. I figured out I can do that work through college coaching basketball. So like my point is, I played a college basketball coach, Division I college basketball coach, to working in the nonprofit, to working in the corporate space. And each one of those roles consisted of facilitating, giving, offering, providing a service. Wow. So now that I'm stepping into my own as an artist and creating my own lane, I'm taking all of these different past experiences and shuffling through life through my own way.
Because you shared a story with me a while back. You said, hey, and I can't remember the details of it, but someone sent you a message on Instagram, and they were younger, much younger than us, right? And you was like, yo, let's get together. And the response was, I'm shocked you replied. I'm shocked that you responded to me, right? And it's like, and you were like, why?
Because you're a famous artist, right? Yeah.
Right.
Why would you respond?
But still, being grounded is.
Listen, I've been on the other side of the fence. Like, okay, quick story. When I was coaching college basketball, it was literally impossible to get into that business. So I would drive miles to like work a basketball camp, to volunteer. I would like email and
get the exposure.
I would do everything possible just to get on, to be a part of this system. That I know what it's like to be on that side, to send a cold email or a cold message to somebody and say, can you help me out? I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I know what it feels like to not get a response. So I always say to myself, if I'm ever in a position to help somebody, least I'm gonna do is like respond back and be like, yo, I might not be the person. Alecia might be the person.
Oh, I pass everything.
You know what I mean?
Alecia
So
and
it's
Michele. You know Jay Michele? You know Alecia?
So it's
Y'all should meet.
it's just really like, just rooted in having a heart, but also knowing that it takes a lot for somebody to send a cold email and
But
say,
you know
can
what?
you help me?
Talk about the courage piece.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of people, they get high up and they get well known and they get successful like you guys, and they're not helping other people come up. I mean I see that a lot, and that's really hurtful.
Last thing I'm gonna say to that too, though, every time I go back home, I'm not from Cincinnati. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Every time I go home, my granny says to me, "Don't forget where you came from."
Yeah.
That's
And it's
right.
like-
That's right.
And I don't think she realized what she's saying to me, but it means so much when you say, "Don't forget where you came from."
Right.
In regards of like what's happening, how big my art goes, I don't ever want to like lose myself in it.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Man, my granny told me the other day to sweep the porch. like the front porch, the back porch, the top porch. I'm thinking to myself, I got so many meetings. She said, I don't care how many meetings you
Right.
You gotta pick up the phone with this damn porch. And it brings you down naturally. I'm thinking to myself,
keeps you
I
grounded.
gotta cancel a meeting because hey, and I literally canceled a meeting with Frost Brown Todd, my attorneys, who I love and they're incredible. And I got on a call with them today for the post, the new meeting. They said, everything good. I said, I had to sweep my grandmother's porch. and they respected it. They like, that's, so my bad. Go ahead, man. She's about to say something.
I mean, that's crazy. My mom the same way. I gotta mop her floors on Sunday.
Right.
It's just it's part of the deal.
You're not too big for that.
Your grandmother, they always used to tell us, don't forget where you started. Now, in our generation, similar statement is, I started with nothing, so everything is profit. I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel.
Right.
It's like when you know you started with nothing, whatever's going on, it's all profit.
For sure.
It's all good.
For sure.
Alecia, J. Michele, I want you both to kind of give your take on this. Being in the positions that you guys are in, right? Because you guys are in a position where you can make a phone call, you can put someone like me, Means, or G in a position, or you can help us obtain funding to close a gap. How important is it for you guys to empower those who are willing to pass it down, right? Because I would imagine that holds some weight. I only ask because people are going to watch this, right? Specifically with who we have on the show today, a lot of young creatives are going to watch this.
Yeah.
And I need them to understand it's not the angle, but it's the angle, right? There's a willingness that once I put you in a room or I put you in position, for you to also put someone else in position. How important is that? And what thought process goes into that as you're doing it?
Artswave has a really intentional strategy that we call the blueprint for collective action. So any funding that we make is sort of a contract with the organization or artist that, yes, it's about giving back generationally, but it's also about impacting the community. So we're not inclined to judge, quality or say this is excellent or more excellent than this. We're looking for how is the work improving the community, teaching kids, bridging divides, creating more attachment to community, and helping build Cincinnati's reputation as a great place to be an artist, a creative, an employee, a resident, student. So if you can do any of those 5 things through your work, then that's the test. That's what we're looking for.
I would imagine, though, those are typically traits of individuals who are moving in an altruistic format. So those who are naturally moving in an unselfish, worthy. So that I'm glad you shared that.
Well, and sometimes you have to just help point out to the artist or the organization, look, you're making this impact and you don't even see it. Right. If you see it, how much more intentional could you be, and how much more impact could you have? Yeah.
Impact is the word.
Yes.
That's the word I'm looking for, because that's really what it is. I mean, you look for people who are going to make an impact. As you look at our communities, and people are suffering.
Yeah.
I mean, folks are in poverty. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their businesses. A lot of our young people have lost hope, and we've got all this violence going on. And it's because people aren't seeing a way up. They're not seeing a way out of this. And so to have that kind of impact, that's what's important. Not just like, we're not funding this for you, for your organization. We're funding this to see how you can spread this wealth. What you can do to bring everybody up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I ask both of y'all a question? Have y'all seen the impact? Like, let's go back for like 10 years. And I know your role is completely different from what it is now. Yeah. Have we seen the impact we've been looking for?
I've seen a lot of it. Like, collaborative agreement is like the best example, because you look back 20 years ago when so many black men were getting killed by the police, and the collaborative agreement stepped in. They're like, we've got to have community police relations, improved. We have to have police, what's it called? Community policing. I'm probably not getting the right term, but it's to make the police a part of the community, so they're not like the enemy from. Yeah, they're not the enemy from the outside come in. They have to be part of this community. They have to know us. We all have to get to know each other. And nothing's perfect now, you know, that it's not like that, you know, we're in utopia, but things are so much better. So when you go into different communities and you see the officers there and they know the people in the community and they know them and they're working together, like in Avondale, you know, we had the celebration for the holidays and, you know, the police came in with gifts and, you know, one of them played Santa Claus and everybody, you know, like, that's Officer LaDon, this Officer Cunningham, you know, went to South Cumminsville Youth Day and, you know, Officer Hicks is coming in with, you know, footballs and, you know, it's like that kind of, it really makes a difference, you know, and so you do see the impact, like it really makes a difference.
And in the arts, you know, 10 years is about my time frame here in Cincinnati, so I don't have the long history, but I do think that over the last 10 years, arts organizations have been much more intentional because of Artswave's funding eligibility criteria. So we can actually count that there are 4 times more free and accessible outside of the theater, outside of the museum kinds of experiences now versus 2015. So that was sort of saying, you know, kids are not going to the art museum, so you need to go to where they are. And at the beginning, you know, an art museum would say to us, well, the art is on the walls, we can't take it off, there's insurance, you know, there's so many reasons why we can't do that. And now they're looking for more ways to get out and more partners in the community. So there's definitely been a change. And for Artswave to fund 27 Black and Brown artists last year and to have this program in place now to do it year over year, that's a huge shift for us too. Because we hadn't had a history of funding independent artists, you know, anybody. We have historically funded institutions and organizations. So, and that's meeting the need.
Yeah, that's so important because there's so many young people who are saying, you know, are we going to get that kind of support? Are you only going to give money to the big institutions or are we going to get a chance? And so now it's really time to reach out to young people like you guys and make sure we're supporting you.
I mean, I'm a recipient. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm a recipient of the Black and Brown Faces. Black and Brown. We can cut that. The Truth and Reconciliation. The Truth and Reconciliation grant.
Yes.
And it's been beautiful to watch, outside of like the physical manifestation of what's created from the grant, the community that's formed within these projects, man. Yeah. And my project is still ongoing, but like community and then the relationships is on the back end of it. Like people who go through this project and on the back end of it, they go through this experience and I pay them for their time and every person be like, bro, I should be paying you. Because of like, because I'm saying like, I think art heals. I really believe that. And it's another way of reaching people in a way that is non-traditional and it can really make a difference. Yeah. And it's just been beautiful for me to go through that and have a person go through my session and be like, you paying me for this? I should be paying you. And it's, I don't know, we need to see more of it.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
we will.
You know.
I was just thinking, I was at the unveiling of the Tuskegee Airmen mural that Brent Billingsley did in Avondale last week, and there were just like so many kids out there, and they had all had a piece of it. They had all like, you know, put their paintbrush on it.
You have an opportunity of a lifetime. You're going, was it Cleveland for the Bengals for the draft, NFL draft, and you stepping on the stage with Roger Goodell, and you're calling the pick. Simultaneous, you get a call that the Vice President of the United States is coming to your coffee shop. What's the immediate thought? Go home? What's the immediate thought?
Well, I was in the car with the person that I would call. I was in the car with my mom. We were probably like 15 minutes from the draft. We were running behind. I was already in the car with my person, you know what I mean? Like, so I got the call, they want us to get everyone out. Vice President's finna show up. I thought it was a game. Like I actually told Thomas, get off my phone. He's like, I'm like, not right now.
Thomas called you?
Blowing me up.
Right.
I'm like, I'm in the car on my way to the draft trying to get my mind clear. Right. You know what I mean? And then I got the text. So then I called and said, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's really finna happen.
What's about to happen?
Get off my phone.
Right.
Then my manager called and she's like, it's for real. Wow. I'm like, all right. So then I'm realizing like, wow, like vice president is coming to the coffee shop. And I was excited. I mean, like, you know the work that we put in to get that shop open.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
And when she came in, they said she knew what she wanted. So that was even like, that was dope.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
yeah,
What'd she get?
she got the Wakanda blend.
Okay.
I mean, it only makes sense. She said she heard about the blend. She got to, try it for herself.
Nice.
But yeah, that whole experience was crazy. Like having the opportunity to go for the draft, then get the call. Obviously, I would have loved to have been there. So I think a couple days, the first 2 days, I was just like, how could this happen? Like I would have loved to have met the vice president, told her my story, took a picture, all the stuff anybody else would want to do. But then I realized like I was there. It's my spot.
That's real.
Yeah.
And I feel like it won't be the last time. I feel like it won't be the last time, and I also want to let you know you're deserving of all of those opportunities. And yeah, man, that's super dope. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that.
I think we all, my mom and my grandma, they went crazy.
Yeah, that was like, oh my goodness.
That's
I'm like,
dope.
she's a black.
That's dope.
You know how our parents, now my mom has an appreciation for what I'm doing and she's more understanding. But I can honestly say, like, with my brothers, my family, they didn't always understand. So it's like, he always working. What are you working on? You don't have much to show for it.
Just had a conversation with my brother about this today.
I'm like, it takes time. You know what I mean? But now I think they have a greater understanding of what I'm going after.
Facts.
And moments like that put it in perspective. Like, if my son can do this, what else can he do?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Listen, I appreciate all of you for joining Gumbo Talks. This is incredible.
So much fun.
This
So much
has
fun.
been awesome. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being open. And with that being said, we'll close it out. It's a wrap.
Woo.
Cheers.
Right.
Cheers. Good job.
Great job, bro.
Listen.